Boy, that Thomas got a bum rap. Of course, we know him as Doubting Thomas. But I'm not sure that Thomas was not just a little bit brave. Because while the disciples were in that upper room cowering in fear, and Thomas was not with them when Jesus appeared, I want to know where he was. And did he draw the short straw? Hey, whoever draws a short straw has to go out and get food and provisions for us. Good luck. Hope you make it back. Or did he just get tired of sitting around? So I cannot sit here a second longer. I am getting out of this room. If they kill me, they kill me. And I like the argument for Thomas being brave, because look what happens when he comes back into that upper room. He goes against the entire community. He thinks they are out of their mind, that they hallucinated this somehow. And then, when Jesus finally comes a second time, and Thomas is with them, he has no need to touch the nail marks or put his hand into his side. He simply utters a brave and simple prayer. My Lord and my God. It's one of the first times we hear anybody say that Jesus is God. Yes, Thomas was brave. Who else is brave? Our Holy Father, Pope Francis, was brave, who we laid to rest yesterday. Think about how brave he was just during the last few weeks of his life. He could have locked himself away in an upper room and died very peacefully. But instead, he went to visit prisoners, visit the inmates who he had visited before. He went to a hospital and thanked all the people who had cared for him. He had them wheel him out into the public square in his street clothes and greet strangers. He met with heads of state, and he took one last encore around the square on Easter Sunday to declare to each and every one of us, do not be afraid, peace be with you, for Christ is risen. Alleluia. Boy, he died with his boots on. But that's nothing new for Pope Francis, because he was always someone who needed to have that encounter, not only with Jesus, but with everybody. When he was a young priest, he went where no one else would go in Argentina, into the barrios, where everybody told him it was too dangerous to be. And he said Mass in the homes of the poorest of the poor and drank mate tea with them. And he did it all by taking the bus and the subway. He stood on the side of the marginalized from the very beginning of his papacy, his first papal trip to the island of Lampedusa, where migrants making their way from the north of Africa, fleeing for their lives. Many of them did not make it. We saw the bodies washed up on the shore, and Pope Francis made sure that he made his trip there so that we would not forget these migrants. Have we ever cried for them? Have we ever cried for migrants in our own country? Pope Francis reminds us of all those who we forget about. On Holy Thursday, he went and washed the feet of 12 inmates instead of the 12 cardinals that he could have washed their feet. He went into Auschwitz and sat in the concentration camp where millions and millions of Jews were exterminated by a madman. And he let that experience wash over him to change his heart. Like Thomas, Pope Francis wanted to see the wounds of Christ, but more importantly, he saw Christ in the wounded. And he let that change him. One of the things I think that Pope Francis really gave to us was he not only was able to go and be with the wounded, but he allowed himself to be wounded, to become a poor Christ, as the founder of his Jesuit community, Ignatius of Loyola, implores his members to become a poor Christ. When stripped away of everything, Pope Francis even allowed himself to face the insults of so many who thought he had gone all wrong. From his own brother priests, his own brother bishops and cardinals, who literally thought that they were more Catholic than the Pope some days. Pope Francis took on those insults, and he very rarely responded. Pope Francis was a pope of the people, was he not? And while we are all missing him today, God will not leave us orphaned. In this Jubilee year of hope, God has asked each and every one of us to be a bit more like him, to be a bit more like Christ, who was stripped away of everything and has become poor, has become wounded. And can we recognize the wounds of Christ in the wounds of others and allow ourselves to be wounded so that we can go forth from this place bringing Christ's love and Christ's mercy on this Divine Mercy Sunday? Pope Francis calls for each and every one of us to be people of mercy as opposed to people of judgment. My favorite story of him is when he first became Pope, they brought him a man who was kind of hampered, using crutches, and he had a little dog with him. And Pope Francis came over, and the man was so nervous to meet the Pope, and he stammered out, "Could you please just pray for me and my wife?" And the Pope said, "Of course. But what about your little dog?" And he blessed the dog and touched the dog. You could see everybody kind of blanching that the Pope would touch a dog. But he did that all his life. Not wearing the papal accoutrement in favor of a simple white cassock and his old ratty orthopedic shoes. Can each and every one of us have such humility? That in this Jubilee year of hope, we can have hope not only in a bright future, but in a right now. Because Christ will stretch forth from this altar for us today and ask us to say those words that Thomas said, "My Lord and my God." So we maybe can unlock the doors of our hearts that we often lock ourselves away from seeing all the things that we don't want to see. And sometimes it's easy for us to go to the margins and care for those people, but we forget about the people who drive us crazy in our own home. Can each and every one of us unlock the doors of our hearts that hold grudges, that can't get past old hurts, and instead live with one another for better, for worse, for richer, for poorer, in sickness and in health? Our job today is to be brave. To be as brave as Thomas and Pope Francis were. To be able to not only say, "My Lord and my God," but to be wounded. And to allow those wounds to change us. We can lock ourselves away in the upper room, or we can rise up. Rise up with him, we will rise. Rise to new life, we'll rise up with him. For with Jesus, who leads us by grace, we will rise with him. With Jesus, who leads us by grace, we will rise with him. Well done, good and faithful servant. May Pope Francis' soul and all the souls of the faithful departed, through the mercy of God, rest in peace.